of Engineering for inviting me as a resource person for today's FDP. My gratitude towards Dr. V. Janki Garu, Head Department of Computer Science Engineering, Vagdevi College of Engineering, who motivated me to take up this session. Thank you, madam, and thank you to all the organizers for the support that you have rendered. Let us now dive into today's session, Blockchain, a Conceptual Understanding. Just to have an overview of today's talk, we are going to review on the blockchain basics that were given to us by Naveen sir. We are going to look at the types of blockchain networks, understand what is consensus and the types of consensus that are available. We are going to have a glimpse of Walmart case study, and then at the end of my talk, we would have a look after understanding these constructs. Do we need blockchain in the application that we wish to develop? So let's begin. What is blockchain? A blockchain is a growing list of records called blocks that are linked using cryptography. Therefore, is it not very similar to the linked list that we have studied in yesteryears? Yes, but the important difference between linked list and the blockchain is that the linked list can grow and shrink, whereas the blockchain is a grow only list of records. Another definition that we popularly find on blockchain is that blockchain is a shared, immutable ledger that facilitates processes of recording transactions and tracking assets in network. That is, whenever there is a shared resource that is there and the shared resource cannot be modified by the processes that are participating in it across the network. At that point in time, the data structure that we use is a blockchain. Having understood these definitions, let us have a formal definition of blockchain. That is, blockchain is an open distributed ledger that can record transactions between two parties efficiently and verifiably and permanent way. That is, the first property of blockchain is that it is distributed and the records are of transactions that are happening in a business interaction. These transactions are immutable. At the same time, they can be verified correctly at any point in time. Therefore, how does all this happen? It happens because of the blockchain structure. This figure was predominantly shown yesterday. You remember Genesis block? It is the 0th block in the blockchain or the first block of the blockchain. And the blockchain contains data. It contains the previous block hash value and it contains the hash value that is computed for this particular block to make it secure. And what helps us to get the hash value, the level of difficulty, is the nonce. And we can see that there is a linkage of blocks. And these blocks are created by individuals or nodes called as miners. So this is what we looked at yesterday. Let's develop our understanding on blockchain further. Because blockchain networks are distributed, these can be both public blockchain networks, private blockchain networks, and consortium networks. Like public blockchain networks, we have all heard of Bitcoin, and it is one of the pioneering works in the blockchain technology, where the Bitcoins are mined through transactions and transactions are recorded and stored in a distributed ledger. Let us understand this in more detail. So, public blockchains are permissionless. That means the parties that are involved are going to participate, and then there will be a common consensus. That is, there are n number of individuals who are trying to mine and create a new node, and one of these nodes will only have the privilege of creating the node and getting the reward for this. That is, it is decentralized and it is secure. As I already mentioned, Bitcoin and Ethereum are examples of this type of networks. The next type of network is the private blockchain network. The private blockchain network is a permission network. That means there needs to be a permission that is taken. It is like we have a database, okay, and in the database there are different roles. Assume that we are developing a college application. In the college application, when we are recording some details as a subject teacher, we have right to enter the attendance and to edit the attendance. Similarly, if the head of the department is doing the similar action, if she or he is a subject teacher, then they have access to the subject. Plus, they can not only view their own subject, but also for all the subjects across all the years in the department. And if it is a principal or a dean, then they can access the entire institute's data. That is, there is access control, and there are entities who have these access. Similarly, in a private blockchain, we would be having some access control, and this access control is given to a participating node, and it is given by a person or an organization which is interested in allowing others to record the transactions and to build the blockchain or to add nodes to the blockchain. The famous example for this is Hyperledger for Unix Foundation. For now, you just record that there is something called as Hyperledger, and it is a project that is a private blockchain network. Let's move further to the third type of networks. These are called as the consortium network, where there are multiple organizations which take different responsibilities in maintaining the blockchain. And these organizations determine who need to submit or access the data. And this consortium model works when there are more than one organizations which want to participate in this particular thing. Again, Hyperledger is one of the examples for a consortium blockchains. For now, we have looked at three types of blockchains. So basically, we have come to an understanding that there are permission and permissionless blockchain networks. A blockchain network may be owned by one organization, and it can identify certain individuals to access the data and to provide some credentials using which the data transactions can be recorded and the blockchain can be created. The nodes can be added to the blockchain. In the consortium blockchain, there are more than one organizations, and they decide to work on some common platform, and they have a common purpose. Okay, the examples are Hyperledger. Let's proceed further. Now, where can we apply blockchain? So, blockchain has got a variety of applications in the fields of asset management, supply chain management, insurance, banking, smart appliances, healthcare, music, government, public private value, blockchain identity in passport offices, in terms of birth, wedding, death records, in personal identification, and many more. And as you are aware that there is a lot of land fraudulent that is occurring. And Naveen sir did discuss that we can know who is the real owner of a particular land if we implement the records that are stored using a blockchain, because we can assure tamper proof records and it can be easily retrieved. The important thing that will be differing when we are looking at these networks is what is the point of agreement. The agreement is also called as consensus, and there are many types of consensus, but we are just going to look at three major type of consensus and look at examples where these are used. The proof of work, the proof of stake, the proof of authority. So by the word consensus, we say it is an agreement, and there has to be a proof that we are agreeing. That means there needs to be a valid protocol or an algorithm which says that somebody has done something. It might be work, or it might be some stake, or it might be some authority. Let us look at the detail. The proof of work. We all know that in order to grow a blockchain, a new block needs to be added. Who adds the new block? A miner adds the new block. Now, what does the miner do? The miner takes care of the transaction and it wants to secure the transaction, and for this it uses some cryptography. That is, there is nonce, there is hash, and they perform some computation using some algorithm, and then finally one of these miners is lucky enough and whose work results in creation of the node. This particular thing wherein we find a cryptographically secure nonce which can act as input to a proof of work algorithm. This particular task of consensus is called as proof of work. Now, what is going to happen in proof of work? There are going to be several miners. One of the miners is going to be selected whose action will result in addition of a new block. Is there any other way? Because we remember that there are n number of participants and all of the participants have access and right to create the block. Therefore, the other alternative that exists to proof of work is called as proof of stake. There we call that there is a miner who is going to mine a block, and majority it is dealt with bitcoins. Here what we are going to look at is a validator. There will be a person who has put some amount or bond as a security deposit. Therefore, the chance that this person is going to betray or cheat is minimum, because if he does a fraudulent action, his bond or deposit is at stake. Therefore, among all of these validators, like different miners, one of the validator will be given a right taking that stake or security deposit, and he is given the right to create the next block. This is what is called as proof of stake. The next thing that is there is a proof of authority. Proof of authority is where the person reveals his identity. That is, earlier I just kept money, and maybe because I wanted to put some money, I don't mind losing some money for lot of profit. Therefore, here, instead of money, your public identity is put at stake. You reveal who you are before you validate the block, and then you are given a right to validate the block. So this is what is called as proof of authority. A simple example. Yesterday, sir has shown lots of demos, and I'm sure few of you who are working in this field should be knowing about Mask. It is one of the tools using which you can mine Ethereum, which is one of the currency like Bitcoins, where to mine a particular block, you will have to first publish what you are doing onto your Facebook or any other social network. Then a code will be generated. That code needs to be entered into your development environment. Then you will be given some currency, and you will be given some chance to validate and add a new block. So these are the three consensus algorithms that I had thought to discuss. Now you would be having a question that, sir, where are these applied? So as I have told, Bitcoin uses proof of work. Ethereum also uses proof of work when the algorithm is Itash. Itash is one of the proof of work algorithms, and it is out of scope of today's discussion. Similarly, there is another network called as Ethereum Kovan testnet, which uses proof of authority, and Neo uses proof of stake. Now you would be saying this is all theoretically correct. There have been lots of applications that are already existing in the market. How do we know about it? So just let's look at this. Give me a minute. Yes, this is an example of Hyperledger. You can find this at this particular URL, which will also be discussed in detail by our next presenter. So just to understand the example about Walmart, what did Walmart do? You know that Walmart is one of the most uh, predominant name that you listen and hear in the industry. Yes, here it's one of the big names in the supply chain. The problem that Walmart was facing was that it could not identify the source of food infection and contamination wherever there was a foodborne disease that occurred in one of the goods that it was selling. What did Walmart do? Walmart thought of taking this particular project based on Hyperledger Fabric, and it had IBM as its technology partner. And they started working with two things. One was food traceability in China on pork, and the other was on mangoes. Earlier, it used to take 7 days for Walmart to understand about the foodborne disease that happened in its product. Whereas using blockchain, they were able to do in 2.2 seconds. So this is the advantage that you get when you are using blockchain. And after this, Walmart had moved from these two products to 25 products from 5 different suppliers. And it is planning to do this across all suppliers so that it can actually identify the problems as and when they occur and at a very rapid rate. Yes. So as I told you, we have come to the last part. Initially, we have looked at the first thing, what is blockchain? Then after blockchain, we looked at what types of consensus are required. That is, before we add a block or when a new node gets added to a blockchain, what are the things that will be taken into account? What are the different agreement approaches that exist? We have looked at the types of blockchain networks that are possible as public blockchain, private blockchain, and consortium. And then we have also looked at the applications that are there, and we have looked as how blockchain was used or adapted as a technology intervention by Walmart in understanding its foodborne disease problem and what was the result of it. But because blockchain is so fast, but because blockchain is so effective, does it mean that I have to use blockchain everywhere? This is one of the important questions that we, when we do our research, becomes very trivial and very important. So let's discuss upon this using this flowchart. Importantly, we know that a blockchain is a distributed database, and therefore the first point to answer is, does my project, my research, my application need a shared common database? If the answer is yes, if the answer is yes, then I need to think about going for a blockchain. If the answer here is no, then blockchain is not suitable for our application. Now I have decided that my application needs a shared database. Second question is, are there multiple parties involved? Like in case of Walmart, there were suppliers, there were multiple products. Similarly, are there more than one parties involved or not? If the answer is yes, then we can still explore whether blockchain has to be taken. Otherwise, we need to stop. Blockchain is not required for our solution. The third thing that is there is, are there conflicting incentives, or is there a untrusted environment, and are we needing a common ledger? If yes, then we have to proceed further. Otherwise, blockchain is not required. Next thing is, the rules governing the application are uniform. If there are certain rules and they are properly framed for both the parties, they are applicable to both the parties or all the parties, then we can think of blockchain. And is there an important property of immutable, non-changing? If so, again we can think of taking the source as blockchain. We have to also check if the rules of transaction change frequently. There can be dynamic rules. Then we need to be very particular about taking. Last but not the least is the type of network that we want to go with. Do we want a public blockchain where anybody can do, or do we want a permissioned blockchain which is either private or a consortium style? If the answer for any of these is no, then blockchain is something that is not required for our application. So now the question is, if any of this is no, you say me that I don't recommend you to take a blockchain. When do I take blockchain? Or what do I do if not blockchain? So let's look at that too. Here, as we said, do you need a consistent data store? And the answer was yes. So then we thought of taking a blockchain. If we have the answer as no, where can we record our data? Obviously, we can record that data either into our emails or in the Excel sheet or the spreadsheet. What do I do when there are more than one entities that are contributing? If it is yes, it's blockchain. If it is no, can I consider database? And whenever there is auditing that is required in the database, then I may still think of taking this more than one entity data contribution into blockchain. Otherwise, we would recommend a normal database. What should we do when the data records that are once written are never deleted or updated? Then definitely we need to take a blockchain. Otherwise, we can store the data in a database or a data warehouse. The other thing is that my data has some sensitive identifier or some sensitive information. Should I use a database? If the answer is yes, you know that all the data is stored using cryptographic mechanism, right? But the alternative, you have encrypted databases. The next question to answer is, who has the right access? And who is going to decide when the data will be entering into the data store? If this is done on a mutual basis, then we are going to consider our blockchain. Otherwise, we would be going into managed database, wherein we already discussed the application, the head, the principal. They have rights of managing or changing the data of different individuals with their admin permissions. The next thing is tamper proof. That's an important thing. If we are not interested in tamper proof, then again we can go for a database. And now also we are not sure if you want to use blockchain, but we are assuming that since this flowchart end has come, it is suitable for you to choose a blockchain technology for your application. This is the end of my talk. We would appreciate taking the question and answers at the end of the session, because there is a continuation of my that will be taken up by the next speakers. I thank you all for your patient listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your very informative session. And I hope participants got good knowledge. And now I would like to invite B. Hari Krishna, sir, Senior Software Engineer from Oracle India Private Limited. So over to you, Hari Krishna, sir.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Hope you are able to see my screen and I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible. Your audio is very clear. Please carry on, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this is Hari. I'm having 12 years of experience in Oracle Enterprise. So I have exposure in developing various applications using Oracle, Java, and Python. So let us talk today about the blockchain technology. So everyone assume that blockchain is a new technology, but it's a very old technology. It was first, the white paper was published in 1991 by Stuart Haber and Scott Stornetta. So when they first published the white paper, after 19 years, there was a first implementation that was done. So that was nothing but the Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is nothing but a cryptocurrency. So we should not get confused with both blockchain and Bitcoin. They both are different. Blockchain is a technology and Bitcoin is one of the application which runs on this blockchain. So Bitcoin is basically a financial cryptocurrency mainly used for financial transactions. If you see in the olden days or in the current world, what we do is when we're transferring an amount from one user to the other user, we need an intermediate trust party who actually identifies the other party. For example, if I want to transfer an amount from India to US, so there would be a trusted party in between who actually identifies the person in the US. And once he authenticates, then only the amount will be transferred. So for this activity, the mediator, the trusted party, would charge some amount to us. And at the same time, for this transaction to complete, it would take a minimum of 2 to 3 days if it is a huge amount. And also he charges pretty much amount over there. So with the help of blockchain, there won't be any intermediate trusted parties. What all we can do is we can simply transfer the amount from one user to the other user. There won't be any centralized repository, and there won't be any government involvement here. So, and the speed is also very, very fast, and there won't be any the transaction charges what we are having with the trusted parties now. So that's the reason Bitcoin has got a huge success. And after looking at the success, the Bitcoin was first implemented in in 2009. That is after 18 years of the white paper that got published. So after it was done by Satoshi Nakamoto, and he implemented the Bitcoin in 2009. So it has got very good success. So this is purely the finance application. And looking at this success, many people have started looking at the blockchain technology. So since then, there was around 1,500 implementations that took place after the 2009. So we are Bitcoin is nothing but financial transactions, as I said earlier. But now, what about the non-financial transactions? That's a big question now. So people also want to do a non-financial transactions, just like a land ownership transfer or real estate, or you can take a retail industry. There would be a non-marketing, non-financial transactions also. So, and hence there was another concept which came into the picture, that is nothing but Ethereum. Ether is the currency over there, and that actually supports both financial as well as non-financial transactions. And it also supports um, smart contracts, which is a very good technology, or I can say it's a future that Ethereum has. Okay. So next thing is, who has invented this Ethereum? It was Vitalik Buterin. He has first introduced this Ethereum, and it supports both financial and non-financial transactions. And when I say non-financial transactions, it would be supply chain management, real estate, and aerospace industries. And there are many other, whatever you think, whatever which runs on the network, that goes into the non-financial transaction. Whatever it runs, the business runs on the network, we can go ahead and see if Ethereum best fits to that requirement. So that was also a huge hit. After the Bitcoin, the Ethereum was the one which got a very good response. And what are the different languages that we need to know when you want to do be a good developer in the blockchain technology? So I would suggest, if you want to be a good developer, then you have to go to Solidity and Go language. These are the very two good languages which helps you to be a blockchain developer. So as Naveen and Salim sir might have already shared with you, there are different networks on which this technology works: the public, private, and permitted networks. When I say public network, the Facebook is a good example, wherein you can log in and you can post tweets, you can watch videos, and you can do. It is accessible to all the public. When I say it's a private network, it would be internal to the organization. For example, Oracle has its own private network, wherein only the authorized users can access that network. And when I say permitted, then you need to pay some amount, and you would be given an access to. And the one best example would be the cloud computing that nowadays all the organizations are more interested in. They are serving this blockchain on the cloud platform, so that the business end users need not pay much amount in maintaining the infrastructure and the cost of the machinery and the maintaining employees. No one would be there. It's a direct cloud computing that many organizations are offering nowadays. So even like the ERPs which are available on cloud, now the blockchain is also available on cloud. You can just get an access from these vendors. That comes under the permitted network. So, and there is a language called Node.js also you can use, and for the database. You have a MongoDB, and Python also you can write. And there is one more. So let us see about now. This is about the non-financial transactions. So what about the smart contracts, which is a very important feature? So how do you define the smart contract? Is nothing but it's just like a function. If you know the database, it's just like a function wherein we write some logic in that block, in the blockchain, that code, and that is stored in the blockchain. So it gets automatically executed whenever that particular term or condition is met. So one good example would be for the smart contract is like a vending machine, which is a very good example for the smart contract. So when you place a currency note in the vending machine, it automatically reads that note, it identifies, it validates it, and once that condition is met, that the amount condition is met and everything is done, then it delivers the goods, either the water bottle or whatever you want from that vending machine. So that is one of the example for the good example for the smart contract. So how it works. So in this case, it was vending machine, but when it comes to the blockchain, the logic would be written in the blockchain itself. So it is a distributed database, like Salim has mentioned earlier. It's like a distributed database. The logic is written on the fly itself, so it gets executed. So that is about these smart contracts. So here are the different types of implementations that had happened till now. The Bitcoin was a very it got a very good success, and Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Ripple is also one kind of an network, and there is an Hyperledger. This was Ethereum and Hyperledger is in this combination. It is very good. If you want to make a good career in the blockchain, then you need to concentrate on Ethereum and Hyperledger, as per my opinion. And this Hyperledger was introduced by in collaboration with Linux and IBM. So they have introduced this Hyperledger. So everything, it's just like a framework they introduced, and everything will depend upon the technology called the blockchain. So everyone has their own platforms they created. Hyperledger is one of the platform that IBM and Linux has come up with, and how to access it based on the REST APIs. You can use REST APIs, which are open source, and you can implement, you can play around this framework. So you can use to build your applications, your own applications. So these are the few of the good examples of the blockchain. And yeah, digital currency, autonomous decentralization application. Yeah, that we already discussed. Digital currency, crypto, the Bitcoin is a very good example of digital currency. How it is, there is no central mechanism to control it. So that's the reason it is highly secured. And your money, whatever you're transferring it is secured, and you can it speed ups your transaction, as well as it's a secured one. So the second thing is, this is a high level overview. I'll come to this point because I want to give an example of how this blockchain works. I think already Naveen might have covered this one, but just to understand, I will reiterate the same. So what happens is, whenever you are going into the network, you need to have, just like on paper, we have a signature validity, which is a source of trust. And the similar way, when you go to the network, there you need a digital signature. So that is nothing but you are initiating that transaction, that's a valid transaction. So in the blockchain, whenever we start with a digital signature, we initiate the transaction. And once we initiate the transaction, it will be broadcasted to the different nodes. So user will broadcast it to the different nodes. For example, if I have A, B, C, and D, these are the 4 nodes. A has an 15 rupees in his account. So that is an initial phase, 15 rupees that he will broadcast to all other. And he initiates a transaction to the B, telling that I want to transfer 5 rupees to B. So that gets broadcasted across the nodes, and that is nothing but an open ledger that will get distributed across these nodes, A, B, and C, and D. So when I say it's an open ledger, that is nothing but, you know, the whole concept of ledger. Ledger is nothing but we write all the transactions. For example, the general ledger you have in Oracle. So what we will store all our transactions, like A transfer 10 rupees to B, or B transferring it to the C, and what is an open balance and the closing balance. So this is nothing but a ledger. So always open debit should be equal to the credit. So then only that's considered to be a valid ledger. So that similar way, this ledger is nothing but whatever the transactions we are doing across these nodes. In this network, I have 4 nodes, A, B, and C, A, B, C, and D. So when A is initiating that, A is telling that I have 15 rupees in my wallet. That is first distributed these 4 nodes. And the second one, he'll tell that I am transferring 5 rupees to the B. That is also it would be distributed to all these 4 nodes. So I'm just trying to explain how the blockchain would get work. So once in these 4 nodes, we also have like miners. Suppose that A and D are miners. So what they do, they'll be looking for these publications. Whenever there is any publication, the transaction get published within that network. So these miners would be polling to that kind of an event. So whenever that event happens, these miners will compete with each other, like A and D will compete with each other, and they will try to validate the transaction. So since A is initiating now, I would not say A would be the miner. If B is transferring it to the D, then A and D would be the miners. So what they'll do first, they have to validate the transaction. So what is the current balance with the A? Everyone has, that is an open ledger, right? That has already got distributed. So they will first validate, is it a right transaction? Does B has a right amount in his wallet to transfer or not? Yes, he has an amount. Then it is a valid transaction. I'm just trying to give a small example. Then after the validation is happened, so that particular transaction need to be added to the current ledger. That link, he has to link it to the current ledger blocks, right? So everything is maintained as a blocks, and each block would be maintained. Within each block, we have a limitation of some transactions. So once this transaction is complete, then a link would be created, and again the next block would get started. So these miners will first, whenever any publication comes in the network, they'll try to get that as soon as possible, and they'll try to validate that the transaction, whether it is a valid or not. And once it is valid, they will try to mine. They'll try to fetch the key, the address where it best suits, so that they can go and add to the current the blockchain. So for this, they have to spend a lot of time. The computation power need to be very huge, because there will be some lakhs of transactions within the blockchain, and they need to first validate, and they need to identify that the hash key attached to that the transaction, that block, and they have to keep it in the proper place. So a lot of computation power is needed, and because of which they need to spend some little amount of time as well as computation power. So once they find the key, they'll just publish it to the network again, that yes, we have identified this is a valid transaction and here it is the key associated with that block. And after identifying it, the miner will go and add that block to the existing blockchain. So once it is added to the blockchain, the other people in the network, they'll simply, they will get this copy as it is, because that's a valid transaction, and everyone will have the same copy again. So that is how the flow will happen. So the crucial things is these are the miners and the distributed. This is a decentralized application. There won't be any centralized people who would be managing these transactions. Everything would be decentralized, and it happens based on the hash key algorithm that we have predefined logic we have in the blockchain. So here, then the consensus would be applied and the protocol is used, and that will become the true state again. So that ends the complete transaction. So this happens every time. Whenever the transaction getting initiated, the miners will come, validate, and they'll just place it in the right way. If it is not a valid, then it would not be getting added to the chain. So that is about the distributed, decentralized applications. So users, as I said, it is mainly used for, nowadays we are using for cryptocurrencies. The blockchain is mainly used for cryptocurrencies. And as I also said that the very good feature of this is a smart contracts. So smart contracts also we covered. It is a very good concept that just like a function that we can manage without human intervention. We can manage the things to get executed. So the one more best example for the smart contract would be like land ownership transaction. So this is a non-financial transaction again. Financial would be completely the Bitcoin or currencies will come under the financial. The smart contracts concept comes under the non-financial. So in the non-financial, we have land transactions like land ownership transfers. So similar, like as I said in the last example, the blocks would be there. The same, the initial status, the consensus would be the same. The initial status would be who is the owner of this land. That will be the initial status, and how the transactions are happening. From A, person A, it is getting transferred to the B, and everything would be maintained in the open ledger, and everything would be distributed across these nodes. And there would be, it is immutable, and we cannot tamper this, because if it is first of all, if it is not valid, it won't get added to the existing blockchain. So it's a very good concept, but nowadays many companies are investing, mainly the banks, huge banks. UBS is also fetching a lot of money, spending a lot of money in research and development. So just in order to cut down the cost that is incurring the banking sector. And this was also used, one of the famous game, we have an online game which is based on the crypto kitties. And I think the first kitty is just like an kitties, they have just like a digital currency. There is a kitties which would be there in this video game. And it is believed that the first kitty got sold for around $117,000 US. So that is what the capacity of this blockchain. The blockchain video game is also, it's a very good, people are investing now. And the next, apart from this finance market, we have a supply chain. Much of our industry, and the blockchain where I think Walmart and IBM also, they are They are planning to invest amount in the blockchain, and they are trying to see if one good application can be brought to the customers. And and we are also seeing like Amex. We have American Express. Similar to that, we have an American payment firm called Ripple, and this is also recently, I think they have selected few IITians from Bombay and Hyderabad. So they are spending good amount of money in innovating in the blockchain, cryptocurrency, and digital payments. So just to avoid, the cost in the transaction and the time it is taking in the transaction. So we are avoiding that. So in order to avoid that, we are using the blockchain. So these are the main companies. I forgot to include the Oracle as well, because we are coming up now with the blockchain in the cloud, blockchain as a service in the cloud. So these are the companies which have already spent some amount in the blockchain research, and they're serving some of the clients as well. And as I said, these are non-financial transactions, which is used in the blockchain. So governments are also using this. This comes under the government sector, maintaining the public records. So using the blockchain, I think if there is another slide here. Yeah, if you should see this, so government has implemented, various governments are implementing the blockchain as it's a free source in the various levels. Like Rajasthan has implemented in e-health records, maintaining e-health records for the people, and some governments are on fertilizer subsidy management, and I think Haryana has went up to land registry system. So when I say land registry system, it is again based on the smart contracts. So that is how they are maintaining it in the blockchain. And I think Maharashtra is also doing a land registry, and especially they are using for the, if you see most of the states, they are using it for the land registry as well as public health maintenance and agriculture, because it's our main core necessity. So there are many projects which are based on the agricultural supply chain. So the blockchain is a very good, if we see now, it is a very good technology to look in. So there are some other products. I would say that many products, I am just giving only few, just for your understanding. So yeah. So I plug and play model. So it will enable retailers to capture customer data in motor stores in real time. And there's one more application which was developed, that is nucleus vision neuron. And it also, the basic concept of this. Yeah. Am I audible to you?
Yes, sir. Please continue. You are audible.
Yeah, thank you. So there is one more nice product on the blockchain, that's a neuron, and it is like a retailer dashboard. I mean, the salesman has a dashboard, so he can see how the consumers in the shop floor are behaving and what are they showing more interest on. And so whoever is coming to the shop floor, they'll just they take some input from them, they'll just add into this neuron, and it is also dependent on the in the blockchain. And there is one more application, Cash and Pay. This is one of the world's largest asset transfer, I mean world's largest digital asset community. So This is for selling, which sells digital assets across 70 plus countries now. So that is also, it is started using the blockchain. Like this, there are many other applications and products which are built on the blockchain. So if you want to make a good career, then I would suggest to concentrate on Solidity and the Go language, which is the core for this, the blockchain application developer, has a blockchain application developer. So there are some other, you can go through the products. Like Augur is nothing but decentralized prediction market. I think the prediction market, when I say prediction market, you need to predict how the market is going to be. So it needs a huge computational things, because even the big data also, there is a huge amount of data which stores in the big data, and they have to predict the market, how the people going to react in the next few days or few months. So in a similar way, there is an Augur is one of the application. It's a decentralized prediction market. It is also based on the blockchain based tokens. So there is a much, and there is also a block cipher. It is just like an service, web-based service platform. So like Amazon Web Service is there, right? So in a similar way, they have their block cipher also. They provide services. So so that the end users can simply plug and play the services, the built-in services already. So blockchain, we can also, using the blockchain, we can also write the web services. So there's one more, BlueZilla. Yeah, it is also a middleware product. So when I say middleware, it would be like a application tier, a middle tier, and database tier. So we can also use it as a middleware tier. So as a end user, I'll just key into the application, and we can write the logic in the middleware. So the blockchain can also be used as a middleware, and it supports all the blockchain protocols. So there are many such kind of yeah, you can go through these this products which are currently running on the blockchain. It's a very good technology. So yeah, that's all. If anyone has any questions, then I'm ready to take it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And your presentation includes a lot of practical exposure. So
Yes.
I think participants got good knowledge about that. Now we will go to our next speaker, Naveen sir. Naveen sir, is I audible to you? Naveen sir?
Yeah.
Over to you, sir.
Yeah, let me share my PPT.
Yes, sir. Your screen is visible now.
Okay. So in the last session, is it clear? Some my voice?
Yes, sir. Your voice is very clear. Please carry.
Okay. Yeah. So in the last class we had, in the last session we had discussed like the primitives of cryptography. It's like we had gone through the hash function, public key cryptography. Yeah, hash function is SHA-256, and public key cryptography. We had seen like Bitcoin uses elliptic curve digital signature algorithms, and we also seen how a document or a message can be signed. and how it can be verified we had seen, and we had seen the history of the blockchain. It's like it started paper publication in 2008, and in 2009 it's like the implementation is done, the Bitcoin implementation by Satoshi Nakamoto, and from there it's like there are very many improvements from the first version we call as blockchain 1.0. The one that is Bitcoin blockchain we call is blockchain 1.0, and we have later we have blockchain 2.0, 3.0, and 4.0 also. Yeah, we will discuss what is 2.0 and 3.0 and so on. And we also seen the basic terminology of blockchain, like what is a node, block, miners, nonce, Merkle tree, and so on. We had seen, and even architecture of Bitcoin blockchain, how the users initiate the transaction and how they are transmitted over the network, and that is the transactions are packed into a block, and how the block is transmitted, and how it is at the end, how it is added into a blockchain, and how the blockchain is synchronized among the multiple nodes or peers in the blockchain we had already seen. And we had seen the process of this block adding. We come across consensus algorithm, which is proof of work for the Bitcoin blockchain. And we had seen some drawbacks for Bitcoin blockchain, like it uses a lot of power consumption, a lot of hardware resources need to be invested, and even electricity it consumes a lot. This is a drawback, and even Bitcoin blockchain has a drawback as 51% attack. Like if more than 50% of peers can join together, and they can manipulate the Bitcoin blockchain. And we have seen the types of blockchain and so on. We have also seen a Bitcoin scripting language, wherein the internal signature verification and so on things can be done with the Bitcoin scripting language. But thing is, Bitcoin scripting language is not Turing complete, and it's it doesn't have full programming constructs like looping and so on. So a full application cannot be developed with this scripting language. So there are after Bitcoin scripting language in 2009, there are a lot of developments went on, and it's like there was development of various programming languages, which are full-blown programming languages, which can develop applications. Okay, so these are the things we had learned until Bitcoin scripting language and so on. We had seen in the last class, and we'll go with the today's topic. The first one is just a cryptocurrency. Already we know that Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Actually, I said like banks has some drawbacks, and to solve them, this Satoshi Nakamoto, he came up with a solution like Bitcoin blockchain, wherein this the payments can be done worldwide from any point in the world, and there is some negligible transaction fee when compared to banks. In banks, it was a big amount. When compared to banks, it's very less transaction fee. Around if you transfer like billions of dollars or maybe thousands of dollars, it's like it costs you around 200 to 300 rupees. It's the same amount, 0.005 Bitcoin. So after Bitcoin, there are a lot of developments went on cryptocurrency, and we have a lot of cryptocurrency like Ethereum. So after Bitcoin, we have various cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, and this is a Bitcoin symbol you can see, and this is a Ripple. This is actually a payment system in the cryptocurrency, and we have this is a Litecoin. It is a fork of Bitcoin, and this is a Dash cryptocurrency, and this one is a Monero cryptocurrency. These are completely anonymous cryptocurrencies. We cannot track. Even we can somewhat, with the help of some mining, data mining, we can track the IDs. It is pseudonymous Bitcoin, but thing is this Monero, and we have a Zcash, Zshark we say, Zcash. It's like we can't trace the ID of the user who initiated the transaction, who transmitted the cryptocurrency, right? And we have many other cryptocurrencies, like around thousands of cryptocurrencies in the market. And as I said, like this Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin, is a hard fork. We have soft fork and hard fork. This Litecoin is a hard fork of Bitcoin, and it has its separate chain like Bitcoin. So hard forks generally has a separate chain. Like the similar way, Ethereum, Ethereum is a second, we can say blockchain 2.0 is the Ethereum. And this is a, the hard fork of Ethereum we call as Ethereum Classic. And Ethereum Classic is a separate blockchain. So why do we get this forks? Is like when all the users of Ethereum blockchain, if they don't want to be like, they want some additional properties for this blockchain, or this blockchain may have some drawbacks, some limitations. So they want some enhancements. So all will agree and they go with a hard fork, and we have a new blockchain here, something like Ethereum Classic. Actually, the problem with Ethereum was there was a DAO attack. So due to that, there was the users went on and to an agreement, and they went with a different chain we call as Ethereum Classic. And we already seen like the hash algorithms used for the Bitcoin is the SHA-256 secure hash algorithm. And Ethereum, it is Ethash is the algorithm used for generating the hashes. And we had seen like the problem with the Bitcoin is a lot of mining hardware need to be invested. And this is a hardware, we call this one as an Antminer. Bitmain's Antminer S9. This is a hardware which is used for mining for the Bitcoin blockchain. Specifically for the Bitcoin blockchain, it cannot be used for some Ethereum. For Ethereum, we may have some other different hardware. This one is Bitcoin for the Bitcoin mining. This is a hardware used, and it consumes a lot of power. Right? And these are the different types of Bitcoin wallets used to store cryptocurrencies. So these are we call these as hot wallets. These are prone to hacking attacks. So they are not secure, these hot wallets. And the safest one is these Ledger Nano S and Trezor. These are the hardware wallets. They are very secure when compared to these software wallets like desktop wallets there. And even we have other like paper wallets also we have, wherein the private key and public keys are we write on a paper and they are not stored anywhere else. If we lose that paper, it's like our private and public keys are gone, and our entire cryptocurrency balances we can't retrieve. We cannot retrieve back again. So this hardware wallets, it's like they store private and public keys. This private keys securely inside their hardware device, and they will transact when required. When with the help of this hardware wallets, we can send the cryptocurrency to some other user, some other person like X. I can send with using this hardware wallets, and they're the safest one. And even paper wallet also, if we do not lose that paper in which we had written our private keys. Okay, and this like why they are not safe, I say like the owners of who designed these may access our private and public keys, so they're not that safe. Yeah, so these are the few things on in cryptocurrency, like coin versus token. In cryptocurrency, we have thousands of cryptocurrencies, like we have around 5,000 change cryptocurrencies, and out of these cryptocurrencies we have coins. Some are coins and some are tokens, we call. So what we call coin is for example, Bitcoin is a coin, Ethereum is also a coin, and we have some other hot and some other Encash. These are tokens. Why do they call some has coins and some has tokens? This coin is which has its native blockchain, and token is one which doesn't have any native blockchain. They persist on some other blockchain. For example, Encash. For example, Bitcoin has Bitcoin is a coin. It has its own native blockchain, and Ethereum has its own native blockchain. That is what do you say is Ether has its own native coin, but the native blockchain. But when we come across this token, it's like when we say Encash, it persists on a Ethereum blockchain. Token will be persisting on some other blockchain. So we have a stable coin also. It is also a cryptocurrency wherein the cost of the stable coins will not change much. Like for example, the stable coin, for example, we have a USDT. We call it as a Tether. Tether is the cryptocurrency. We call it as USDT, Tether. So this is a stable coin which will be equal to our dollar. So with dollar, it just varies with maybe 2 or 3% when market goes volatile, but there will not be much change. But when we look at this Bitcoin, Ethereum, it's like this, there will be a lot of volatility, like around 10% to around 50 to 60% volatility will be in these normal coins or tokens. But in stable coin, there will be a slight, and it will be almost equal to $1. And we have technical analysis and fundamental analysis. It's like these are the charts. Technical analysis is based on the charts. I will not get into deeper. I will make it in future FDPs. Technically, in simple terms, like technical analysis is based on some charts. Like the traders will trade on cryptocurrencies and try to predict what is the support levels and what are the resistance levels. And this fundamental analysis is nothing but the traders able to find whether the cryptocurrency increases cost or not based on its market capital and what are the partnerships it's done with other companies and so on things. And next is this coin market cap. So if you want to see all these cryptocurrencies, so this is a website link. Let me open this website. All of you, if you want, you can open. Let me message in your chart window. So selected to everyone, and here we have its coin market cap. So you can click, all of you, you can open and you can see what are the different cryptocurrencies we have. So I will also share what had opened the coin market cap. Sir, able to see this coin market cap website, the page?
Sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah. So this website wherein we have, you can see the total currencies we have is 5,599 cryptocurrencies we have. And we have the entire list is 5,599. At the top rank, these are the top 100 cryptocurrencies, and we have the top we have is Bitcoin, and this market cap you can see it's $171 billion, and this comes around, you can see 65% of entire market of cryptocurrencies. 65%. We call it as BTC, that is Bitcoin dominance. So entire share of cryptocurrencies, it's Bitcoin's share. Comes around 65%, and you can see the list. We have a Bitcoin. Ethereum is in second place in the ranking. Tether, I said just now, it's like USDT. We call it as the USDT. This Tether is a stable coin, and we have a Ripple. Just now I had shown in the diagram in our slide. A Ripple XRP. It's a payment type of system, and we have Bitcoin Cash. This one is a fork of Bitcoin. We have Bitcoin Gold also. It is also a fork, and Bitcoin SV. It is also a fork of Bitcoin. These are the hard forks of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin SV, actually the developer of Bitcoin SV, he claimed he is the Nakamoto Satoshi, and he had filed a case in court also, and he got some favor, the person who developed Bitcoin SV, but we don't know whether he's really the inventor, that is Nakamoto Satoshi. And we have a Litecoin. This is also some fork of Bitcoin. And we have many other blockchains. You can make Cardano, which is called ADA, and so on, Stellar, Monero, Tron, and so on. Ethereum Classic. This is a fork of Ethereum. IOTA. It is called as a Tangle IOTA. Wherein this specialty of this IOTA is like we don't have blocks here. We have only transactions. They are attached to one another. I will explain this possibly in future FDPs about IOTA. The transactions are very faster in IOTA. We don't have blocks. Transactions are interlinked. And Zcash, this is anonymous. We can't I just said like Zcash, this is anonymous cryptocurrency wherein we can trace back. It uses the algorithm so that we can trace back, and VeChain, this is a good cryptocurrency from a different use scenario, and so on, Dogecoin and so on. So one thing is in this all these cryptocurrencies, when we look at these cryptocurrencies, we have tokens as well as coins. So we will list out what are the coins we have. So what I say is I will select this one. I had selected cryptocurrencies here, and I say what are the top 100 coins only. So actually this list what we had seen, this one what visible this one is, it is a it consists of tokens as well as coins. But thing is, if you want only coins to be displayed, top 100 we can say. And in my other page, sir, is it visible the second page?
Sir, it is visible, sir. Please carry on.
Yeah. So these are the various coins we have. So these are not tokens, only coins. All these are the coins we have. So I said like coin is which has a native blockchain, and this is a list. So, and similarly, if you want like only tokens, the top 100 tokens. Yeah, here we are. The first one is Tether. So these are all the tokens, because so Tether, it doesn't have its native blockchain, so it persists on Ethereum blockchain. It uses Ethereum blockchain. So this one also has Ethereum Chainlink, uses Ethereum and blockchain and so on. So you can see they don't have their own native blockchain, so they rests on other blockchain like Ethereum. And you can see, is there any other chain? Yeah, we have a BitTorrent which rests on Tron blockchain, and Omni blockchain. This one is this coin, and you can Elrond on Binance blockchain. Okay. Yeah, these are the various cryptocurrency we have, and you can see the market caps of these cryptocurrencies and total circulating supply. So coming back to our the general list, it's like Bitcoin. You can see the total actually the total supply is 21 millions, but till now the circulating supply we have is only 18 millions, and still 3 millions they need to be come into the network by solving the puzzle by miners. Yeah, and getting back to our slide. Yeah, so we had seen a lot of cryptocurrencies, but thing is, the problem is they are highly volatile and high risk involved in these crypto. So I say like it's better to avoid investing in these cryptocurrencies. And when we look at the broader perspective, the types of blockchain, it's like we say the first type is a blockchain 1.0 we call as a Bitcoin blockchain. Bitcoin blockchain, this is a blockchain 1.0, and this one, so the next we have is blockchain 2.0, which is Ethereum, and blockchain 3.0, which we call this one as a Hyperledger. So the first one, blockchain 1.0, is purely cryptocurrency, much programming. We have Bitcoin script, but thing is it's only restricted to internal scripts validations, but thing is we can't do full programming. And next we have is Ethereum, where we have it has a cryptocurrency like Ether, and we can specify the business logic in terms of smart contracts. And this one is called as a blockchain 2.0, and this is a blockchain 3.0, wherein this can be used. This doesn't have native crypto, and it doesn't have any cryptocurrency involved, but if required we can develop some. It provides the facility to develop some cryptocurrency, and a lot of tools involved where organizations can use this Hyperledger. This is the booming one in the current scenario. And we have blockchain 4.0 also. When we say this one blockchain 3.0, we have other one is blockchain 4.0 also. It's something like R3 and so on. We have blockchains. Yeah. So we've done this Ethereum. This is a blockchain 2.0. We call it as blockchain 2.0. And here we have it has a cryptocurrency. As well as we can do some, that is, we can do a full blown programming. We can do, and it's like he is a person. Yeah, he is the person, Vitalik Buterin. He's a person. He's a genius behind the Ethereum blockchain development, and it's done around, I think it's 2014. And with the help of Ethereum, it's like we can develop distributed applications. In short, we call as dApps, DApps. And this dApps can be developed. I mean, the dApps are often also referred as smart contracts, and these smart contracts are developed with the help of Solidity programming language. And even it supports many other programming languages also, but basic language we use is Solidity. So when you say the distributed application, here data is shared, and even the code is also shared in this distributed application. That is, the code is deployed at particular address, and it exists on every node. So dApps generally we call as we can also call as smart contracts, and this we call as code on blockchain, specifically Ethereum blockchain. And it's something like a microservice, and we can simply, for others to understand, we can say something like a web service. We can call functions in the smart contracts, and we can get our work done. And the smart contracts use Solidity programming language, and Solidity is a object-oriented programming language for the smart contracts, and it's specially designed for Ethereum blockchain. This is a sample of Solidity programming. Generally, when we teach our students, it's like we start with a Hello World program. So here we have is a simple Hello World program, wherein we had specified this version of Solidity compiler Pragma Solidity, and we say it supports the compilers whose version is higher than the cap represents the higher, so higher than higher or equal to 0.5.0. This is a Solidity version we specify in the first line, and next it goes with the contract Hello World. It's something like our class and class name. It's like our contract and the contract name, and here we can write in our class, we object-oriented class. It's like we can write our functions. Here also we can write inside the contract, we can write a function. It's a high function, and it's a public pure returns. And these are parameters we have for the function. And this function returns a text something like a hello world. So it's something like a similar to the class construct, but thing is, here we use this contract, and we specify the compiler version here. So if you want to execute this a smart contract, we can go with a browser-based compiler, or else a software we can use. So browser-based we have is remix.org. We have a browser-based compiler which internally runs a blockchain, a test network, which executes this code, the Solidity code. You can see the extension .sol is for the Solidity. It stands for Solidity. And when you look at the smart contract, it's like when we write a smart contract code, for example, just one we had seen hello world.sol, it is given as an input to the Solidity compiler, and the compiler gives the output is ABI, application binary interface, as well as bytecode. So this bytecode is installed on various any network, maybe a main network, or it may be a test networks. Okay, so original the Ethereum network we have, and for the testing purpose we have a test network also where there will be a fake ether will be used. So in these networks we can use the bytecode, and this application binary interface is contains the functions wherein we can use it as an interface to interact with the code which is installed on this network, the bytecode installed. So for the interaction we use this application binary interface, and for the application per development it's like we can have a front end like HTML or something like this, using these technologies like Angular, React at the front end, and this front end interacts with the MetaMask. This is a Chrome extension, MetaMask. So if you want our HTML in an application we want to develop, if you want our HTML to interact with the blockchain, it cannot be done directly. We need to have some interface in between. That interface will be a browser extension, MetaMask, and also there will be Web3.js. Web3.js is a library which we can use so that our HTML type of page can interact with the blockchain network, which contains some multiple nodes. So because the RPC is also we can say something like a network. You can go for the testing purpose also. So this is the architecture which says how an HTML or the front end can interact with the blockchain environment using this MetaMask and Web3.js. They are the interfaces. And the entire course generally executed in, as we know, in Java, we have Java virtual machine which executes the code. The similar way in Ethereum, we have an Ethereum virtual machine. It is an engine which executes our this smart contract code. So you can see here in this diagram, a user initiated a transaction, and this goes into Ethereum virtual machines, and it gets executed. The required function gets executed, and whatever amount you want to transfer or any legal, any contract, some conditions written based on condition, it executes, and if some amount need to be transferred to some other, so the other persons, and it gets confirmed. Maybe some transaction of Ether also it happens. So whatever the smart contracts, the important thing is whatever smart contracts they gets executed. It's like using this Ethereum virtual machine. In short we call as EVM. Yeah. So in the Bitcoin, I said like each block contains maybe 1,000 or 2,000 transactions, and the number of transactions is based on the size of a single block. But when we come into this Ethereum, here the restriction of how many transactions a block may contain is based on this gas. So gas is it is a which is something like a fee which need to be paid for every operation that need to be performed on Ethereum blockchain. So the transaction fee is paid in terms of Ether. Ether is the native cryptocurrency of Ethereum. And the miners, here also we have miners who solve the puzzle to add the block into the blockchain, and the miners are rewarded with the fee. And one interesting thing in Bitcoin and this Ethereum, it's like if we pay more fee, there are higher chances that miners will take our transaction and they include into the block. So if we in this Ethereum scenario, if we provide too less gas, it's like there is a result of failed transaction also. And one important thing is in Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency, if we send some, for example, I send some Bitcoin or Ethereum to some other person, if I specify single character address has by mistake in a wrong way, it's like the entire the cryptocurrency is gone. There is no way of retrieving all my cryptocurrency like in banks. So we need to be careful while typing the other person's address. Okay, so these are the tools which are used to develop distributed applications. We have a Remix. This is a IDE. It's a browser-based IDE. So the blockchain, it runs a blockchain, a test blockchain inside the browser, and we can execute a smart contract. Just I had seen, I had shown you like the Hello World smart contract. There's a link for this ID. If also you will see here, have enough time. And this is a Ganache. Here we can run our local test blockchain. We can run using Ganache, local development environment. And so local blockchain you can run, where there will be 10 accounts where we will be given some 100 ethers, test ethers, not a real ethers, they're fake ethers, which can be used to, because in our smart contracts, if we want to do some transaction, we need to write something on blockchain, we need to pay some fee. For reading data from blockchain, it does not involve the fee, but thing is, if you want to write something on the blockchain, we need some fee, and that fee, if you want we want some test ether, we can get from this Ganache. And we have a MetaMask also. As I said, like if you have a browser, a Chrome browser, it's an extension of Chrome browser, which is used to interact with the blockchain. And during the development of a smart contracts or another program, you can use a text editor to edit the files. Example, we can use the Atom editor, or we have other editors like Sublime is also another editor. And Web3, this is a library, Web3 library. It is also an interface in the browser used to interact with the blockchain. So if you want to look at Remix Ethereum, let me send you the link of this one, Remix. This I said like this is a browser-based IDE to execute smart contracts, the code in a Ethereum blockchain. So let me show you. I'm sharing the page. Sir, is the code visible, sir? This window, code
Yes,
window?
sir. Yes, sir. It is visible.
Yeah. So if you want, I can give you the link for this one. Okay, here we have a sample Hello World code. So we don't have enough time. So we are going with a simple code. So it's like this is a file explorer. We have a simple hello.sol. So sol stands for Solidity Programming, and I already explained like this a compiler version specified, and this is a contract which contains some string, and in this variable, greet variable, we had stored a string like hello world. And what I do is I try to compile this one. So for this compiling, when I click this one, compile to compile this icon we have, and here I will specify the compiler version. So already you can see compiler version in between these versions. So I have is 0.6, so it's okay. And the language is Solidity Programming, and the virtual machine is compiler default virtual machine, which execute this code. And when I say compile hello.sol, I had compiled the code, and this code, compiled code, need to be deployed on the blockchain. So if I want, so when we deploy that, this code will be this smart contract. We can say it has a smart contract. This code will be deployed on the blockchain on a specific address. So we had already seen what is the address. Like in Bitcoin address, we have a hexadecimal format address. So and similarly, we have in Ethereum, we have an address. There, this code will get installed. So had done with compiling, I need to deploy it. So deploying this icon, we have deploy. So when I click this one, yeah, so you can see I had selected the hello world. I will make sure that the hello world file is selected, and when I say deploy, yeah, it's done. You can see the tick mark also. It's executed successfully, and I will say you can see the hello world. It is executed. It is installed at this address. So let me copy in a notepad and show you in which address it's installed. So this address where this Hello World program is installed. The smart contract is installed, and I had clicked here, and I scroll it. You can see this is a variable, greet variable we have, and we are trying to just print the hello world text. So what I do is I click this button. So it's like, I guess you can see the string hello world is displayed here. So the string hello world is displayed here. So we are trying to print the hello world. This is a simple program we had seen. So if possible in future FTPs, I will show some HTML page, HTML page which stores some data in the blockchain, retrieves and displays and so on, things we can do. A good application which helps in for our BTech students. Yeah, hope this one is simple, but we have some better glance of this what a smart contract is, and we'll get back to our slide. Yeah, here. And we have a troubleshoot also. Troubleshoot consists of nothing but this Ganache, and we have a Truffle is also ID. It contains Truffle, Ganache, and Drizzle. It contains. So Truffle, it is a ID, something like a remix wherein we can develop smart contracts. As a, yeah. Okay. So we're done with the Ethereum part of thing. And next we have is Ethereum we call as 2.0, and next blockchain 3.0 we call we have this example is a Hyperledger. It's like a permission one. We can private blockchain can be developed, or consortium we can go with. These are the various technologies under Hyperledger umbrella. We have Hyperledger Fabric, Composer, Sato, Tairoha, Indy, and so on things we have. So here it doesn't have a native cryptocurrency. If you want, we can develop the cryptocurrency in this environment. And it's like there are a lot of things in this Hyperledger. For example, if you take Hyperledger Fabric, it's like we have a notion of channels, like different organizations, members of channels, and so on. I will develop. I will explain in future, if possible, with the channels and other concepts in the Hyperledger Fabric. And this one Hyperledger has my friend said about Hyperledger Fabric. It's like it's backed by Linux Foundation, and also IBM involved in it, and many other organizations involved in Hyperledger development. Right. Okay. So when we want to look at what are the use cases on blockchain. One use case I want to explain is something like a this is an example scenario wherein we have something like a brother and sister, and there is a piece of land wherein there is a dispute between on this land between these two, like who is the owner of this land. So actually in normal current scenario, it's like they need to approach a advocate this lady will approach an advocate to solve the dispute, and the advocate go through all the documents and he may take the decision. But thing is, it will get into the court and he may take the decision is. But the thing is, there may be a fraud or some manipulation can be done by the third person or middle person, we can say. So to avoid this, we have the solution is blockchain, in which we can cut off these middlemen, and only these two will be and using the blockchain we can settle this. There will be no frauds happen, like for example, it's like whatever transaction happened on this land by their ancestors, it can be recorded on blockchain. So you can see in 1900 the owner of the land was Adam. He buys from Mary, and now the current owner is Adam. This is record, this transaction, or we can say data recorded on blockchain, like Ethereum, we can say. In a block, it is recorded, which cannot be manipulated. And important thing is, this is signed. This is signed by the private key of Adam. Right? So it happened in 1900. So no other one doesn't have that private key and cannot do this signing. So it is digitally signed. And this happened in 1900, and later in 1930, like Dave is from Adam, and the current is Dave. Now it's he has registered on this block, stored in block. It is signed by him. And in 2007, the lady Annie, she buys from Dave, so the sister Annie. So she is a current owner, and now she is the legal heir of the legal owner of this land. So so has this blockchain is immutable. It's like no one can alter this stored transaction. It's like when you look at this past data and when get to the current data, it's like we can say the current owner is the lady and not the person, the other person. Okay, this one scenario, and the other one scenario, this is already specified by the other friends, my friends. It's the scenario by it's happened in China, like Walmart has some retail stores in China. Where the retail stores where the pork is sold, and the problem is that one retail outlet, it's like they found like the pork is something like a decomposed, or we can say not good enough to use. So Walmart, it's like this batch of pork is distributed to all other. I mean, it might have distributed to some other Walmart outlets also, but the thing is, Walmart cannot track where this batch of same something like a decomposed pork is distributed to. What are the various other outlets, Walmart outlets? So there is no a mechanism to trace those Walmart outlets. So it's like Walmart partnered with IBM, and there was a solution on a blockchain wherein it tracks whatever intermediaries involved, and at every moment it's like it stores the information on the blockchain, so that any mistake happens, it can be traced back. So you can see in the production of the final product, we have intermediaries that are starting. There may be a farmer, and next is the manufacturer. Then maybe a store, the transport. In between transport also the problem may happen, or we may have distribution centers, the storages we may have, and next retail stores, and they find it delivered to the customer. So the entire, because we say this one has a something like a supply chain management. This can be tracked with the help of blockchain. So Walmart already it's working on around 5 to 10 products, and it want to implement the same thing on all its products to be fair enough and give good products to the customers. And how the governments are using this blockchain. We had seen, my friend Hari had already explained how various governments are doing in India, like Punjab and so other Telangana and all other states are working on the blockchain implementation real-time scenarios to make the things better. In the similar way, it's like we have Estonia government. It's the first country on national level which is using the blockchain, and it has tested blockchain into it is testing the blockchain from 2008 and so on. And what it does is it is using the KSI blockchain, which has keyless signature blockchain, wherein all the documents in its government organizations, maybe vehicle registration or land registration, automobile or any other registration centers, all the documents are hashed, and the final hash is stored on blockchain. So you can see here the KSI blockchain. Actually, this is developed by a company called as Guardtime in Estonia. And this Estonia is using this blockchain in a national level in judicial system, healthcare system, property, business, surveillance, tracking information system, state gazette, official and regulation, so on. It's using in most of its services, government digital services. So what happens in this case, a blockchain, it's like we can assume something like these are the different government organizations, and whenever a person approaches this government organization, it's like if you want some registration or any type of thing, it's done, it's stored in a hash is generated, and the person is given as a token is given for him, and whatever the document created as a part of the service, the documents are hashed. All the documents at each second, it's like the documents are hashed and passed through various servers, and at the end we have a final hash which is stored in the calendar databases. So these are the various documents. Each second they are generated, and then final hash is generated, which are stored in the calendar database. And it's like the good thing is the final hash is published every week in newspapers. In Estonia, the final hash, the government will publish the final hash of that week, a single hash in newspaper or maybe a television and so on, media, so that the user can check back if any modification with the help of hash and the token he has. He can check back if any manipulation is done, and he can challenge the government if any modification done. So this the governance is very much transparent in Estonia. So actually, I hope this must be implemented by all other governments also, and especially in India, because there are a lot of things going on. To solve them, we need something like this one. And I say like blockchain is interdisciplinary. It's like EC or EEE, other branches can use this blockchain, something like to store the data. The circuit-based branches, it's like they can use this blockchain to store their data. For example, as I say, there can be application. There are some applications which get together. They combine the blockchain, the IoT, and AI. So something like in this scenario, it's like, for example, there may be IoT sensors which gather the data, whatever they sense, various types of sensors we have in IoT, like so heat sensors and so on sensors, they gather information. That information is analyzed using artificial intelligence. What we may store the data on database also, and thing is for to make it immutable, it's like we can store the database hash in a blockchain. So there may be a combining these technologies, we make application. As my friend shown, like Nucleus Vision Encash, it actually implements a combination of this blockchain, IoT, and artificial intelligence together, their application. Yeah, that's it for the session. Let me know
Thank
if any
you.
queries.
Thank you very much, Naveen Kumar sir. So it's such a nice session and it's very informative. So all the participants are requested. So if you have any questions, please hold for a moment. We will have a valedictory speech. So immediately after that, we will have a Q&A session along with feedback form. Now I would like to invite our beloved HOD D. Anjireddy sir to please address the gathering with a valedictory speech. Over to you, sir. Anjireddy sir, is I audible to you?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. Now you are very clear, sir. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, all. This is Mr. D. Anjireddy, the head of the Department of CSE, Vageshwari College of Engineering, Karimnagar. I am very much delighted to find a huge response to our FTP. In this regard, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to our beloved General Secretary, Dr. G. Srinivas Reddy Garu, and Joint Secretary, Mr. D. Srinivas Reddy Garu, for providing us the required guidance and support to organize this FTP. I am also thankful to our principal sir, Dr. C.S. Srinivas Garu, for his valuable suggestions and continuous encouragement. I am also greatly thankful to the highly knowledgeable resource persons, Mr. D. Naveen Kumar Garu, Mr. D. Harikrishna Garu, and Mr. Salim Amir Ali Jiwan Garu, for their valuable inputs on this topic, blockchain. Thank you, sir. Last but not least, I thank all the participants of this FTP for their spirit and interest in taking part actively in this FTP. In the end, I thank all the coordinators and all faculty of CSE department for your priceless contribution towards the success of the department. Thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your valuable speech. Now, it will be requested to the participants, if you have any queries, you can raise your hands. We will unmute you. You can directly speak to the speaker. Otherwise, you can also post any questions in chat box so that speaker will able to answer you. Another most important information, feedback form link is available in chat box. Please click that and fill that feedback form to get the certificate. Meanwhile, if you have any queries, you can ask to the speaker.